Hello class. In this video, I'm going to discuss, this is from our textbook on page 156 in section 3.1, question number 1, part B. That being, I want to use the Lagrange interpolation to find a polynomial that passes through the points -1, 0, 2, 1, 3, 1, and 5, 2. Now, if we recall from that Lagrange polynomial formula, we need to find a polynomial p of x. And we first multiply by the value of y. In this case, we're going to start with the value of 0. And this will be multiplied by, and then we would go through each of these values of x. Not starting with the one that we're on. So this would be x minus 2 times x minus 3 times x minus 5. And then this would be divided by, this would then be divided by, based on the value of x that we have, which is -1, we want to subtract each of the x values. So -1 times -2, -1 minus 3, and -1 minus 5. And we're going to do the same thing for these other terms. So that's going to be +1 times, we'll have an x plus 1, an x minus 3, and an x minus 5. And then we're going to have that divided by, this was a value of 2, here's a 2 plus 1 times, we would have the value of 2 minus 3, and then 2 minus 5. We have another +1 times, so this is going to be x plus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 5 divided by, this is going to make, let's see, we're just on that little, that 3, 1 point, so this is going to be 3 plus 1 times 3 minus 2 times 3 minus 5. And then finally, we would have +2 times, and then we go through these ones. So this is going to be x plus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 3 divided by 5 plus 1 times 5 minus 2 times 5 minus 3. And then we would need to multiply these polynomials together in order to obtain whatever the function is going to be when we do that. And for this particular function, if we were to multiply all these, I mean, first and foremost, let's face it, the first, get to my color here to know it. This first portion of this equation, that's just gone because of that 0 in front. But despite that, if we were to multiply all the values of x and get those values in the denominator and whatnot, we would have the following parts. This would make, from this particular equation here first, this is going to make 1/9 times 1/9 times x cubed minus 7x squared plus 7x plus 15. This one is going to make, this is going to be a negative 1/8 times x cubed minus 6x squared plus 3x plus 10. And then from this one, we are going to have in the denominator, we're going to have a fraction here of plus. This is technically 2 over 36, also known as 1/18, times x cubed minus 4x squared plus x plus 6. And then, of course, you could distribute those fractions and obtain the full polynomial from that. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.